readers,
reviewers,
countrymen,
lend us your ears. And a huge thank you to all of our Patreons.
Thank you to the Pit Fighters, the First Swords, and all of the Bright Stars, Truth and Courage.
Hello and welcome back to for the very first time to the channel. I am Will and this is my brother Ed, and together, surprise surprise, we make the Brothers Gwyn. And today we're going to be talking about fantasy books on our TBR. We like to read a wide variety of genres, from historical fiction to fantasy, crime, literary fiction, classics, the whole lot pushed into one.
Fantasy, historical fiction, fantasy, historical fiction.
And a bit more fantasy. But today we are just going to be talking about fantasy because that does incorporate a large percentage of what we read. And that is what I think a lot of people seem to be on the channel following. Because
if you want to read about dragons, you're not going to go read crime, are you?
No, you're not. So today we're here to talk about...
dragons don't really commit crimes, that's why they're not in crime.
That must be it, Ed. You found the mystery that no one knew. But now, let's get on with this silliness and talk about the books. We're going to start with books that we're both... They are both of our TBRs.
It's rare that we have books that we read the same books.
I know, it's weird, isn't it? It's
like, I do keep telling you
somehow
to read...
we've influenced each other this time.
Yeah.
So I will kick us off, Ed, if that's all right. And I have The Combat Code... The Combat Codes by Alexander Darwin. So this has been self-published a few years ago, but it is being picked up by Orbit and it is being traditionally published. I think you said Jimmy Nuts has been a pusher of this series for quite a while now. And so, yeah, I'm glad that it's getting more attention. I'm really looking forward to reading it. I heard that there is a martial arts element to it and that Alexander Darwin is a martial artist himself, so that he can really use that experience to create an authentic, immersive feel in the writing. And this is being released, I believe, in early July, or maybe June.
Late June, I believe.
Late June, probably.
It does say June on it, so
yeah, actually early June, 13th of June.
There we go.
Maybe mid-June.
When I heard that Ryan Hall from the UFC actually read this and loved it, I was absolutely hooked. I will be picking this up for sure in June. Little side note for Easter egg for UFC fans there. True. Nice
Easter egg. And so, yeah, that is The Combat Codes, and that's the first book that we will both be reading at some point that is in that fantasy genre.
Yeah. The next one, we need to say a huge thank you to Janny Works for sending us an edition each of To Ride Hell's Chasm and signed as well.
Away.
They're such beautiful hardbacks. We've been so excited to read Janny Works. We see the likes of Philip Chase and P.L. Stewart reading her and absolutely loving her works, and she is P.L.'s favourite author. So we have
high praise by itself.
Exactly. So this year we will be reading some Janny Works, and To Ride Hell's Chasm is a great standalone to jump into. Just a good place to start with, really, with Janny Works' writing, and it has a fantastic premise of it is two veterans essentially are going out to rescue a princess who has gone missing, and there is a lot more to it than just simply that, and it's a little bit of a detective story, or so I've heard as well. And we
love animals, don't we?
We do love animals,
and so there's something
at the back. We have horses, we have goats, we have all sorts, but horses are probably our favourite animals, aren't they? Probably mine. And what about you? Or penguins.
Goats, dogs,
we haven't
and
got
horses
penguins
at the top.
Rhinos are cool as well, but I haven't got any of them. But it says, an accomplished horsewoman, author Janny Works was inspired to honour the extraordinary courage of the horse as a focal point of this story. The equine spirit has carried human aspiration to triumph throughout history. So often our greatest gift has been their sacrifice. And I absolutely love that. It's so true. Horses probably have got really the short end of the stick, really.
Yeah.
With human association and what they've been used for throughout history. But yeah, and I can't wait to read this. And if the other author who I absolutely love her writing, and she is a very experienced horsewoman, is Amanda Scott. So that bodes very well.
If anything similar, then we are going to absolutely love
any book that focuses on animals too, like with an extra layer of detail.
We are there.
Yeah, then
we are there.
We're there.
And next up, we were talking about P.L. Stewart, weren't we? And next up, we have a P.L. Stewart book.
His ears must have been burning.
We are both going to be reading this. A Drowned Kingdom sounds so awesome. This is fantasy, of course, but I've heard that there's a lot of historical inspiration as well.
Yeah.
And we love to say that we love historical detail being in fantasy books, because even though it's fantasy, creatures, made up world, all this stuff, when there is historical detail in there as well, it feels like it adds a layer of authenticity, a layer of immersion, and we do strive to have
and
that.
As PL has such a similar kind of reading taste to us, I'm sure that this is going to speak volumes to us, much akin to Philip Chase. We have fairly similar reading taste, don't we? Now PL, it says a drowned kingdom. Is there lots of water in it? Because water just scares me.
It is terrifying. The sea. Well,
once you've watched Jaws, you're never going to look at the sea again.
Never. And so I really cannot wait to read this. And I'd say we're quite good at choosing books that we are going to enjoy. There's so many out there that we can kind of tailor pick. And
that's why we have so many.
We're lucky,
stars.
aren't we? Yeah, exactly. And so I feel pretty certain that this is going to be joining that category
100%.
very soon.
And the next one is a release by Shauna Lawless, which is book 2 of the Gale song, isn't it? Or the Jail song?
I'm probably butchering the
Irish.
pronunciation.
It's Irish, so we'll be saying it wrong. But yeah, exactly. And that is book 2, which is The Words of Kings and Prophets. And I cannot wait to read this. It's being released on my birthday, which is September the 14th. Write it down, everyone.
What a birthday present.
Yeah, it's a great birthday present. So thank you, Shauna. We've been sent it, so I can't wait to read it. Just going to wait a little bit closer to release. And I'm sure you'll be seeing a review of that on the channel here, because we absolutely love Shauna Lawless's writing. Now, that series, we've already read book 1, so if you want to check it out, go read our review, or go check out our review, that is, and watch our interview with Shauna Lawless herself. It's been great seeing that she's growing in popularity as the months and months go on. She's definitely getting a foothold on BookTube as well as on Goodreads and social media as well. So it's great to see that she's doing really, really well. And book 2 is going to be, I'm sure it's amazing. It's historical fantasy set in the Viking Age in Ireland, which is, some people might feel burned out with the Vikings, but you won't when you read about it set in Ireland. I think people probably get burned out with Vikings because it's in that same Britain setting, isn't it, during Alfred the Great, or a little bit earlier as well. And it can, if there's so many books, it can feel like a bit of a cramped space at times, doesn't it? Because there's not too much to distinguish much around that time period, lots of shield walls and whatnot, but I think Shauna Lawless has captured it so well, because she's made it distinctively her own story.
Exactly. And then on top of that, you've got Irish mythology and lore thrown into the mix as well, with 2 leading brilliant female characters to drive the story. So there's not a single moment that feels boring or like kind of burnt out, as he said.
No way. But it feels like you're treading on already trodden ground.
Very nicely put.
Taking the path less travelled by. And
very
the books less read.
Right, Robert Frost. But that's another release coming out soon that we really cannot wait to read. And I'm going to be talking about another one. And this is the last of the 5 books that we were both talking about today. And this is Witch's Sin, and book 1 of the Neon Ghost series by Daniel Green. So we read his novella Breach of Peace a few years ago now, and we really enjoyed it. I thought there's some bits that could be worked on, mainly the prose, kind of make it a bit more fluid, but we really thought that he had fantastic characters, and I really enjoyed the kind of horror-esque element. It felt a bit like Sherlock Holmesy, but in a fantasy setting, and I've really enjoyed that, and it felt like there was so much more to the world. So I'm really looking forward to seeing kind of how Daniel Green has come on as a writer. And so that'll be one really interesting element.
And the book does look wicked, doesn't it?
It does.
The cover and all of it just looks absolutely wicked. So he's done a really good job. Looking forward to reading that as well and putting a review of that on the channel.
Yeah, another book that we are very lucky to be able to read early.
100%. It's the joy of BookTube.
It really is.
Do you want to start off with books that only you want to read?
Thank you, Ed. Yeah, I will kick it off. And first, I
do want to read these as well at the same time, but not in choosing a focus of.
Yeah, not in the imminent future.
Yeah,
maybe just in the future. First, I have The Adventures of Amina El-Sirafi, and this is by S.A. Chakraborty. And so she is the author of City of Brass. Yes. And that's a very... I forgot what the series is called. The Dave Bard trilogy. See, it's always if I just stayed silent for a few seconds and thought, I wouldn't get the name, but if I say, I didn't know, and it just pops into my head.
You're warming your brain up.
It's like a magic trick, And so, so that is a huge series that so many people have loved, and I've heard brilliant things about this as well by reviews who I trust, such as Niels Reviews It, who's great over on Instagram and Twitter. And TikTok as well, and over on the Fantasy Hive, which is a great blog for some fantastic fantasy recommendations and reviews. And so this is a book that I'm really looking forward to reading. Never read any book by her before, so it's always nice kind of finding an author to kind of dive into that you've heard highly praised and you feel pretty certain that you're going to enjoy their work. So this is another one to add to the huge, towering, dangerous TBR pile.
And the first one for me is Susanna Clarke's Piranesi. I've heard amazing things about Piranesi, and I think apparently Mark Lawrence's The Book That Wouldn't Burn has kind of a Piranesi-esque section,
I would say
or
so,
feel to it, a vibe, if you were. And I've heard such amazing things about it. It's hard for you to be in the fantasy community and not have actually read Piranesi. So obviously I got an email recently from the fantasy community saying my card would be revoked, and I wouldn't be allowed to any of the fantasy clubs if I hadn't read this. So
it's one of Philip Chase's favourite books. Well, one of my favourite books.
Exhibit A. So I have to read it.
And I believe Library of a Viking, he loved it as well. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he hated it.
I believe that you believe
so.
that Library of a Viking liked it.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. And next up I have Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. And so I've read 9 books, I think, by Mark Lawrence, but I've never read any of his
most read book.
Maybe I'd say Book of the Ancestor, maybe.
I don't think it's as read as this. I think Prince of Thorns is to a whole new level.
Well, anyway, a book that has been very successful for him, and probably his most famous, well-known character, to say the least, York Ancraft, who is inspired feels like the wrong word, because inspiring is positive. Inspiring in a negative way from Alex. Model.
Structured.
Very nice. Structured after Alex.
Magpied.
Nicely said, Ed. Any more?
I was going to stop because usually you say 4 or more is bad.
Yeah, I do like things in 3s. But anyway, so he's modelled, structured, magpied from Alex from A Clockwork Orange, and that is never a good thing because he's a psychopath. I'm really looking forward to reading Prince of Thorns, seeing what Mark Lawrence's writing was like earlier in his career. This was his fantasy debut, and I've heard really great things about it. Very dark, very grim, and probably grimmer than the books of his that I have
If you like the term grimdark, this is really grimdark. But if you hate the term grimdark, this is really grim and dark. So
it's just not together. So you should still read it.
But
I've heard great things from you and Papa Gwyn and
is that
many
illustrated,
others.
that edition, or is it?
Don't believe so, but very nice feel to it and a nice.
So that trilogy probably have the second best set of covers ever, I reckon.
They are awesome covers. So that is Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence.
Very nice. Okay, the next one for me is The Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula Le Guin. Again, it's essentially a classic of fantasy, isn't it, that I really, really need to read. Again, Philip Chase absolutely adores this, as do many, many other booktubers that I love to watch. The Wizard of Earthsea is considered one of the, at the pinnacle of fantasy, really. It's up there with some of the best that prose can offer, up there with some of the best that characters can offer, and imagination as well. And I think it's hard to find a fantasy author who is not influenced by Ursula Le Guin because of just the wide breadth of readership that she has, and she's obviously one of the greats. So I'm looking forward to experiencing her greatness.
Very nicely put, Ed. And so I did listen to book 1, and I kind of got the ethereal feel to the prose that she masterfully puts together. But I think it was a book that maybe didn't transcribe to the audiobook form as well as
they don't
others.
Translate much.
Exactly, so I will probably be reading it physically in the future.
Great, and maybe we could do a buddy read.
We could.
It's not like us, is it?
No, it's not. Maybe. We are currently drawing to the end of the Boudica read-along at some point.
That's true, actually. We've been reading that.
But next up will be Papa Gwyn's The Faith in the Fallen, and then we'll have to discuss what we're doing after that. But meanwhile, next up I have Ariadne.
Have you read Live Ship yet?
No.
Carry on.
Next up, I have Ariadne by Jennifer Saint, possibly the most well-known Greek retelling other than Circe and Song of Achilles. So, other than the works by Madeline. No, it's a lot more well-known than.
Yeah, I was joking. I was just going to reel them off.
Oh, sorry.
All serious.
Yeah, other than Electra and Pandora. And, but anyway, Ariadne, really well-known. It's kind of part of this recent wave of the reawakening of the Greek retelling, but from the feminist lens, a feminist retelling of these characters. And yeah, these
Do you feel like
characters
that
are
area is starting to feel a bit crammed now?
Yes.
A bit clogged?
Yeah, because a lot of them, I think this will be very interesting because it's not the Trojan story, whereas so many of them are about kind of the invasion of Troy, aren't they? Like, I read 1,000 Ships by
Natalie Haynes.
And there's parts that I
think
thought
you did
were
a
brilliant.
review of it on your channel, didn't you?
I did. There are parts that were brilliant, but there are parts that didn't click with me as much. And I think part of that may be because I've read so many kind of Greek retellings. Silence of the Girls is one of my favourite books ever. Obviously, Song of Achilles, and so.
I think
so
Silence of the Girls does it so differently.
Yeah.
To anything else.
So
I've
nothing.
read. I'm not as probably widely read in this Greek retelling as you are, but to me, I think what's her name? Pat Barker just did it so differently. Like, it was
good.
so grim.
Yeah.
Whereas like Cersei had horrific, harrowing moments, but it didn't have that kind of grim feeling, did it?
No.
It felt more mysterious at times, really.
It still felt...
Silence of the Girls felt more grounded in reality.
Yeah.
And then there was like a dripping of mythology in there, rather than, you feel like you're in, the Hercules Disney film.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Song of Achilles.
you're on Mount Olympus.
Song of Achilles feels a bit ethereal, doesn't it?
Song of Achilles?
Yeah.
So, I was talking about Silence of the Girls.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, right, sorry.
I'm saying that feels a bit ethereal, whereas
right.
Song of Achilles is rooted in... Silence of the Girls is rooted in kind of what warfare is actually like, and that adds a grim lens to it.
I think it focused far more on the characters rather than the surroundings. Like, it takes place on a beach.
Yeah.
That's it, the whole book, which is just, different.
Small setting as well, yeah. And a very different depiction of characters.
Less pigs, too.
But anyway, yeah, there's Ariadne by Jennifer Saint.
And the next one for me, I have to look over there, is Titus Grown, which is book 1 of the Gormenghast trilogy by Mervyn Peake. Again, another classic of the fantasy genre. I recently watched a review. I can't remember what the channel was called. He's done great reviews. I saw he did a review of Lapvona and stuff like that. I can't remember what his name is. I'll put a link in the description below. But he was recommending Gormenghast, and it was, his videos are absolutely brilliant. Although so brilliant, I can't remember his name. I'm really sorry. But he does some brilliant reviews and some brilliant videos. So I was checking them out, and Gormenghast was mentioned quite a lot as one of the best that fantasy can offer. It is a classic and something that I haven't really heard actually too much of, even though it is a classic. But I'm really, really looking forward to reading it. The premise is essentially a young boy is crowned king, where obviously he's not fit to rule, and then he lives in this castle, and it essentially all takes part in this castle. And it sounds a little bit like a gothic horror almost, doesn't it? Really, that premise. Yeah. But I'm really looking forward to reading it. I want to read more classic fantasy, especially stuff that is like pre-80s essentially. Because I've read lots of David Gemmell and whatnot and other authors in a similar vein, so I'm looking forward to going even further into history. I love Robert E. Howard, so it'd be nice to meet in the middle now and read something that's a little bit more contemporary to Conan, but a bit more ancient to Papa Gwyn.
Be a fancy maestro for every decade, Ed.
Wow, maybe.
I'll try. But next up, I have Guards by Terry Pratchett. I've only read 2 books by Terry Pratchett. One he co-wrote with Neil Gaiman, which is of course Good Omens, and then I've read one Discworld book, which was absolutely brilliant. I loved kind of the humour, which was very kind of witty and sarcastic at times, where you've got an apprentice to the literal embodiment of death, which of course is going to act as a catalyst for many very interesting
how can it not?
conversations and events and circumstances. And so but I love that. On top of that, you've got this philosophical lining which makes you think, it's thought-provoking, but it doesn't dominate the book or detract from the story. And so I'm expecting more of the same in Guards, and I think overall this is probably the most beloved book of Discworld. And so I'm really looking forward to diving in. I know that the Library of Alexandria, Alan himself loves Guards. Yeah.
I mean, is anyone else like this, where they have a book on their TBR for what feels like 6, 7, 8, 12 years, and they just never read it? They always think, this is like near the top of my list, I'm going to read it soon, and then you just don't get around to it, do you? And this feels to me like Guards is that's your book, isn't it? That you've been pushing along, kicking the can up the road, really. Exactly. But you will get to it, and I'm sure you'll love it. But maybe you're waiting for the right time.
And meanwhile, up on our Patreon they get to vote for a book that I originally in June. And currently, Guards is actually winning.
Wow.
And so, as you say,
did you vote
it's been
for a
kicked
different
away.
book, or did you vote for Guards?
Yeah, I didn't vote, but
Safest.
Yeah, exactly. But it'd be a
That
bit
would be
weird.
unfair. Because
That would be unfair if I
Yeah.
said, "Yeah, do you want to vote for the book I want to read?" and then I vote for a book.
Who would do that? I know.
But Guards is a book that I may probably be reading in June.
Wow. But Will, have you read True Grit yet?
I will probably have read that by the time this video's out. Well, it's only short, isn't it? Or maybe a few days after.
You should.
Crazy, isn't it?
I think our Patreon Jen might kill you if you don't.
Yeah,
read True
she's
Grit
hunting
soon.
me down for not reading True Grit yet.
100%. The next one for me is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, I believe.
I don't know how to pronounce this surname.
But yeah,
yeah.
this is a book that has recently taken fantasy by storm. I know that the ninth books have been so successful. I remember
The
when
Locked Tomb, I think the series is called.
The Locked Tomb, thank you, not the ninth books. But ironically, there was 9 books in that series, but I don't think there are yet. Anyway, but who knows? Maybe. When we were chatting to Joe Abercrombie, as you do, he said that he really enjoyed the voice in Gideon the Ninth. And that he was really impressed actually with it. And he doesn't read much fantasy whatsoever, but that is a book that still sticks out to him. So it's been again, like I was saying about Guards for Will. So this has been a book that's probably been near the top of my list for quite a while. But I'm definitely going to be reading it very, very soon. Just because I want to be able to experience the buzz. You know?
And I've really enjoyed it. Thought it was really good. And another book that uses a lot of humour.
You said you thought I wouldn't be a big fan of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Sorry. It's one that will either click for you or it won't, and I just had a little feeling.
Well,
maybe
if you take the mouse away,
maybe
it
it
click.
won't with you, but maybe the keyboard you have then.
Oh, true, actually.
Yeah.
21st century.
Yeah, exactly.
Mouse pad.
But I may be, and I
Trackpads,
hope that I am wrong.
I hope you're wrong as well.
Thank you.
Next.
I have my last one. Is a book you mentioned earlier, and this is Lapvona by Tessa Moshfegh. I think that's how you pronounce it. Is that how you say her surname?
Moshfegh, yeah.
Okay, well, we met her last week, didn't we? So she is a Booker Prize winner nominee, and this is her most recent release, and it's a kind of, as Ed described it, a medieval fable in a messed up village with some supernatural stuff going on as well. And so, yeah, it's not a happy, nice, secluded fairy tale village. It's horrible,
disgusting,
terrible things occur.
It's a good read.
Is it a character study? Or social study.
It has a Stephen King vibe.
Right, so you're kind of jumping across quite a wide array of perspectives.
And every single character is one of the most unique, at times disgusting and just intriguing characters that you cannot help
but watch
what they do, or all at the same time. It doesn't feel like it feels like it's a book that if you changed like the place names and the food and the clothes, it could be now. Kind of thing like. But yeah, it's a very intriguing book that is well worth a read.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to reading it, hence why it's on the list.
Very nice. And the last one for me is a book that I just cannot stop thinking about at the moment, and it is called The Will of the Many by James Islington. It is a book that Petrick reviewed and said he absolutely loved. I saw that
he said, what is it, best Roman book with the best magic trope or like school trope.
Yeah.
All in one.
Yeah.
So
a best undercover as well book, isn't it? It's basically, essentially, someone has to infiltrate essentially a fantasy Roman academy, like Red Rising, and they're working on the inside, and obviously if they're found out, then they will die probably by some gruesome means. So I love that kind of story. It's someone goes to school but they're undercover with some Roman influences, and it just sounds fantastic. The cover hooked me straight away, and then hearing what Petrick was saying about it, I know that Mike from Mike's Book Reviews said that he really enjoyed the Lycanius trilogy, and this book has got him hyped. I've seen on Twitter people saying they're enjoying this even more than Lightbringer, which Lightbringer almost made it on the list, but I realise it's not fancy, is it? So thank goodness.
Lightbringer?
Not Lightbringer, yeah, by Pierce Brown.
Oh right, yeah.
Sci-fi.
Sorry, yeah.
Space.
Yeah.
What did you think? I was putting Brent Weeks.
Brent Weeks, yeah.
Different Lightbringer.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so I'm so pumped to read The Will of the Many. I probably will read it as soon as it arrives on my door because it's a beautiful book and I just have been so excited to read it. It's one of those books who just got a really good buzz about it,
Yeah.
you know, and it's something that hooked me immediately as soon as I heard about it. You just have things like that, don't you, sometimes?
Yeah,
Where
sometimes you just have
you're
that
drawn to
feeling.
it, you've got this gravitational pull, and that is the book for me. So I will at last be reading my first James Islington book, which is really, really exciting. He's a big fan of Papa Gwyn.
Is he?
He's a big fan of Papa
Wow,
Gwyn.
that's brilliant
Yeah,
news.
yeah.
And
I stalked his reviews on Goodreads.
very nice. That's well, you have to do it, don't you? It's part of the job.
I do it with everyone. So I
Everyone.
know. I know.
But
I know.
anyway, let's put aside the threats. And Ed, is that your final book? So I
Yes.
believe this is 15 fantasy books that we want to read, 5 that we both want to read, and 10 different ones.
Hopefully we haven't done another cock up, because I did a solo video where I was like, the whole time was like 10 books you should read if you like Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, and I only spoke about 9. So
Yeah, I was watching it.
I think I should retire from being a teacher and
You obviously
find
are
another calling.
you were tired that day.
I was tired.
And you did have 10 books, but you just forgot to talk about one, to be fair.
One was Blood Meridian. You should read it again.
That you should say that at the end.
Cheers.
But anyway, everyone, thank you so much for watching. This is our fantasy TBR. Let me know what books you want to read that are fantasy in the comments below. Let me know what fantasy books you have recently loved and enjoyed, and what has made you want to read more. Anything about reading, anything about fantasy books, anything to chat about, please do put in the comments below. And everyone, as always, thank you so much for watching. Truth and Courage from the Brothers Gwyn.
And if you have any books that you have been putting off for years and years, and that you feel like now should be the time to read it,
You're not
go and
alone.
do it, and please tell us in the comments what they are, because I'd love to know that we're not the only ones. Anyway, Truth
Don't
and
help.
Courage, thanks for watching. Stay safe, the Brothers Gwyn.
The Brothers Gwyn.